Hello, everybody. We are live. So we are doing the REI Courage podcast today. We do not have anybody on. There was a technical difficulty of my calendar sending the wrong link, so we are waiting for Connor. Hey, there he is.
Hey, sorry about that.
Connor, how you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was, kind of improving with the technical difficulties. Entrepreneurship in its journey. That's how it normally goes. We adjust and we figure out what's going wrong and we make it work. Right?
That's right, man.
Yeah. So on today, this is the REI Courage podcast. Appreciate everybody kind of bearing with us. And so normally it works out. Takes about a minute or two for people to hop on anyway. So right in line. So I wanted to bring Connor on. Connor is in the St. Louis market with me and is rocking and rolling. I mean, you're what? You just turned 25, you said?
Yeah, I turned 25 in August.
Turned 25 in August. So he's just barely, just turned 25 a couple months ago. And dude has been on fire. I'll let him give his rundown of his story. And I've got specific questions because Connor also, one of the questions that we always get in this industry and people actually struggle with whether or not they need to do it is the difference between heading the traditional real estate, becoming a realtor and agent route, and, should I be an investor? Well, this guy, just like his broker we had on a couple weeks ago, Adam Cruz, he is both. So we're going to go through that journey and listen to him, and I'm going to ask specific questions because I've got questions to help you guys out as well with that navigating that decision. So, because I was at one time back in the day a realtor myself. So I've got views on it. Other people have views on it. So we're going to get Connor. So with that, I mean, I'll just let him start going through his list of accomplishments at his young age of 25 plus a couple months, and we'll go from there. So yeah, again, Connor, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Ending the year strong, and go for it, man. Start going into your story about where you came from, and we'll just Yasin. The other thing, comment if you're watching, like show Connor some love, show everybody some love, comment where you're at. If something pops up, I'll put it on the screen. Yasin says, welcome. He's a guy that watches most of these podcasts, so he'll be on probably for a little while. But yeah, when stuff pops up, I'll just intersperse it into there and we'll get going from there. So I've talked enough, Connor. I'll hand it over to you, man.
First, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor and pleasure. It's always nice to be around guys like you who are killing it in the game as well. So a little bit about me. I growing up, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I got older. I graduated college, thought I was going to go play baseball in school, and realized that college wasn't for me at the time. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. So I was working a job that I thought I was going to do the rest of my life. I was working in sports turf. Thought I loved baseball. I loved being around sports. Thought I wanted to work on baseball fields the rest of my life. And I quickly learned that you work really, really hard for not a lot of money. And I made that transition. And then I ended up going back to school. I thought college was the way to go and was like something I wanted to do. And it was a big accomplishment. No one in my family had gone to college. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do that. So I went to school. I got a degree. And quickly realized that I didn't want to work for somebody. I wanted to be my own boss, and the harder I worked, I wanted to be able to control my income. So the harder I work, I wanted to be able to show that. So I got my real estate license while I was a senior in college. I did that to pay for my education, and I kind of got into it just like anybody else. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I started listening to Bigger Pockets, and thought getting my real estate license would help me become an investor. And I quickly realized that is not the truth at all. In real estate, they really teach you how to be an agent and an agent only. So I slowly made the transition into the investment world. I started being around other investors, going to meetups, started surrounding myself with people who are a lot smarter than me. And then I started dabbling in wholesaling a little bit for a year. And then the day I graduated college, the day after, I closed my first investment property that we flipped and sold turnkey. And this year, we just finished up the year. We finished 13 projects on the turnkey side. I've wholesaled a little bit this year. I've been the GC for 2 projects. I bought a rental property, and I have an Air BNB. So it's been a crazy 2.5 years.
Dude, just killing it all over the place, man. Awesome. So, Yeah. And it's funny when I talk to, some people, they've got like hours and hours of like that old stuff. You're brand new into this. So
Yeah.
you did 13, just to make sure I got this all laid out right, the timeline wise. So you were working for someone, going to college in sports, and you realized at a certain point that entrepreneurship thing kicked in where it was like, oh man, if I work harder, it's not going to exponentially like reflect in my bank account. It is just going to make someone else more money, probably, right?
Yes. So that was something I always really had in my blood. So right out of high school, I started like a small lawn care company because I knew I didn't want to work for somebody else, but like I knew how to cut grass. So I started cutting grass and had some success with that, and was doing pretty well, and had the opportunity to sell it. I was hating it. Wasn't really enjoying it. Didn't really know what it was to run a business. I didn't know how to manage people. I didn't know how to do any of it. So I went from like 1 yard up to, I think, 65 whenever I was at the peak that we were cutting weekly. And I ended up selling that off to a guy for a little bit of money. I didn't really make a ton, but it was nice little cash in my pocket at the time. And it was a great learning lesson. So that really launched my, I guess, entrepreneurial like bug in me and being able to do that.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. You sold your first business at how old were you when you sold your lawn care business?
I was 20 at the time. So it wasn't a lot of money at the time, but it was really, really cool. It was a cool experience, and it was nice to be able to launch.
Yeah. Dude, that's fantastic. So yeah, even at the age of 20, you're buying and selling, or you're building a business up, you're selling it. That was one of the things I've heard in some circles that I've started to is like, hey, if you're building a business, like your goal isn't to be in that business. Your goal is eventually to sell that business. And so as opposed to being self-employed, and like you had mentioned the Rich Dad Poor Dad. The cash flow quadrants. Have you read that one yet?
Yeah, it's been a huge, it's a huge like mindset shift. I think now, like as I'm growing and stuff, you really like realize how important systems and like models are, like processes. I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants, and I've quickly realized that like that's not good being a business owner or entrepreneur. Like that, like businesses run off systems and models and procedures, and you learn that as you hire people because you think that people can think like you, and you quickly realize that that's far from the truth.
For sure, man. Everybody's got their what we call the zone of genius, the Big Leap book. Yeah, it talks about got to put those right people in the right places in the processes. So that was before you got to college. You graduated last year. You had done some wholesaling, it sounds like, with your real estate license.
Yeah, I did.
Until you graduated.
Yeah, so I was wholesaling a little bit. I was at a bigger brokerage, and I started dabbling in wholesaling in the investment world, and I realized that there was like a lot of red lines and paperwork I had to do at a bigger brokerage to stay compliant. And it just like was something that like was not feasible at where I was at. It was a little more work than what it was worth. So I ended up switching over a year ago and joined up with Adam at Herman London.
Yeah.
Like a huge game changer.
Awesome. And so you were wholesaling, there was some red tape, and that's typical.
Yeah.
Like you kind of touched on one of the things when people ask me like getting their license is that test and like going through that training and everything. For me, all it was showing me how to not get the brokerage in trouble. It was all liability testing. It was all making sure you knew the rules, not like kind of like for me, how school was of like, hey, this is how to work in a factory. This is how to work for someone else. It's not a matter of like, hey, actually going out. So what was it that dollar, like, again, I'm being restricted? Like, what was that shift that made you move from kind of transactional with how most real estate agencies, traditional and like wholesaling is, to I'm going to start taking on more, like you graduated and then you said the day after you got that, you're started with your investment, your flips, and then like going into rentals. What was that mind shift for you that really kind of made it clear that you wanted to go down that road?
I think the big mindset shift was whenever I did my first wholesale deal, and like I was like an $8,000 deal, and it was like a huge check, and I was selling houses that were like $150,000 houses, and putting in so much work, and the commission check was a lot smaller, and it took a lot longer to get, and I quickly realized that I could wholesale faster and make more money than I could as a real estate agent.
Okay.
And there was less work. So that was really the mindset shift as far as like going from like a real estate agent traditionally to like a wholesaler, because there's a lot less work, I would say, that goes into wholesaling a deal if you have the right buyers and the right deal in place than being a traditional agent.
Well, yeah. And it's in that transaction, you've got built-in buyers on your back end. If you've got that system set up, it's way different than traditional where you've got to find your buyer and your seller every time. So it's a different animal. It actually, when you phrase it that way, it's kind of lays out for me as a process of transfer of like, hey, I've got to do both sides, find both sides, make both sides happen. Here's a transaction. Yeah. Then the easier is, well, now I've just got to find the sellers. I've already got buyers. And then talk about that shift from wholesaling into rehabbing yourself and running the projects, because that's also a whole nother step in a transition as well that a lot of people ask questions about.
Yes, I mean I think the big boost of confidence came whenever I first wholesaled a deal from Hubzu. It was a deal that I was super worried about, and I didn't think I was able to close it. It was a auction site here, and I locked it up, and I didn't have the cash to close it at the time, and I was able to wholesale. So that was like a big boost of confidence whenever I did that, and that really launched me into saying, all right, if I can wholesale a deal off an auction website, I can flip a house and manage rehab. And that, as crazy as that sounds, and as crazy different as those worlds are, I saw someone that was in the like investment world flipping houses, and they're like making some money, and I was like, man, I can do that. Like, what's the biggest thing? And I think the biggest mindset shift was going from like, hey, look, if I fail, it's okay. I think the biggest thing that I was focusing on, like, hey, if I can break even and learn how to like manage a rehab, like that's a huge lesson. That's like more than I learned in 4 years of school. So that was really something that I was like, hey, I have nothing to lose here. Like I just graduated college. Like the worst thing I can do is go back and get a job. So the biggest thing was just taking that leap of faith and knowing that like, hey, look, that if I fail, at least I'm going to fail and learn a huge lesson. And really my first flip, I bought it for $12,000. So I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen here?
Well, and so how did that one actually play out? And I'm going to touch on some of the things that you're like laying out, but I just want to get like how that full process hammered out for you.
So I actually bought it from a wholesaler. He actually wholesaled it to me off the MLS. So he actually got it for like $6,000 and wholesaled it to me for $12,000.
Okay.
I didn't know until after I was closing, but I was like, good for you, man. That's awesome. So I bought it for $12,000. We ended up being we budgeted around $8,000 for the rehab, but first rehab screwed up. I ended up being all in it at like $21,000, and we sold that for $32,000 to a buyer off of actually Facebook, believe it or not.
So you were intending to put $8,000 into it on top of the buy at $12,000, and you ended up your repair cost ended up being 21, or you?
Yeah, our rehab cost ended up being 11. So we're all in it at around like 21, 22 mark, right?
Okay.
Cost.
Okay, and then you sold it for, you said, a guy on Facebook as a turnkey.
Yeah, we sold that one. We did not sell turnkey. We sold vacant, and then he placed a tenant in it.
Nice.
Yeah, so we actually sold that one vacant.
Okay. And you ended up selling it for, I mean, I don't know if you want to share it, if this guy knows that you're hopping on, or
okay. We sold it for $32,000. So it wasn't a huge profit, but it was a great learning lesson.
Yeah. And you still got a flip under your belt. You made profit, which a lot of people like, they'll get a flip under their belt. And even though you went like $3,000 over, is actually not that bad on your first one, considering you don't have any experience, speaking from experience. So
that's actually some of the work too. Like that was a huge lesson. Like I was swinging the hammer.
Nice. Yeah. Which is always fun. Yeah. So you did all the work. You ended up being $3,000 over, which as people start going through this process, they understand they learn quickly, like what you can do, what's out of your realm, your scope of like, hey, I can redo this flooring, but why do I want to? If I can have somebody do it better and is more skilled and will do it quicker, it'll actually save us money, right?
I look back on that one, I just like laugh. Like that I did so many things that were stupid, and I don't like, you just look back on it like, wow, what was I thinking? But actually, like that guy that I sold it to, I still sell him deals. And I'm actually managing a rehab for him now, currently in the same market, that like the same zip code that property was in. So
there you go. And that's just it. It's like a lot of people say it's about the money. A lot of people, the whole premise of like my consulting business and why I started this podcast is it's different for everybody. And you're gonna fall into things like even Yasin said here, like fall forward.
Yeah,
like
100%.
Yeah, and that's what you did. And your expectation and your intent was, I'm going to do this even if I don't make any money. And that's one of the things when I talk to people that I found through this process is when your intention is not the money, it's to build yourself. The money is a byproduct. It really is, because your goal was to get that education. Your goal was to invest in yourself in a way that you just could take it and move on to the next project. And hey, maybe instead of a $10,000 profit on the second one, I'll make 15 because I learned something on this first one, right? So that's huge, man. So was there a shift for you as well that helped you go from, okay, I'm flipping, I'm doing these, I'm selling these, now I want to take on being a landlord, or was it default? Like, what was your thought process and growth there?
I think the biggest thing was what it came down to is like each one I did, I got more confident. And really I was like, hey, look, if we're buying the houses right, we're running the rehab, why doesn't it make sense to hold it? If I can be all in a project at $25,000 in cash flow, $300 a month, and own it free and clear, or leverage it, put a line of credit on it, or refinance out, like, why doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
Do it. And my biggest mindset was like, all right, I'll buy a property, I'll fix it up, I'll flip it, and then I'll keep one. And obviously that changes as you go, like as cash flow and as you grow your business, things happen. So that was the biggest mindset shift. Like that one street that I did my first flip on, I ended up wholesaling a house at the corner, bought the next one like 6 houses down, and then flipped the one around the corner. So like that little area, that little pocket gave me the boost of confidence, because I was there every single day, and I was seeing what I could buy houses for, seeing what I could run the rehab for, and then seeing what they could rent for. So really the numbers, when you're sitting there doing the math, you're like, all right, like I think people always think the $10,000 a day is super attractive, but the $300 a month over the next, 5, 10, 15, 20 years is pretty attractive as well.
And it's all how you prioritize it. Like, for real, it's a matter of Melissa Gilbert, I think that's her name. She wrote Big Magic. As she talks about it, it's like everything's got its pros and its cons. It's just a matter of what flavor of poop sandwich you want to eat every day. Right?
I think too, like as you go, you kind of learn like what the noise is that causes you to stay up at night, or like what are the things that are like variables that affect you. And that's different for everybody. Like in the beginning, like when you're flipping, as you start growing, like I was funding a lot of my own flips myself. So like the cash got tight pretty fast.
Yeah.
So then you realize, all right, how can I leverage like OPM? How can I leverage other people's money? How can I leverage different options to make my dollar go farther?
For sure. Will has said, Connor, he's the man too. Will, I think wasn't that like Adam Cruz's cousin or something? Or
yeah. Will's the man. He just got his license and he's out there hustling, killing it.
There you go. Awesome, Will.
Dialing every single day, so good for him.
Boom. All right, man. Well, let's keep an eye. Will, here's a call out, man. Let us know. Like, let me know when you get your first deal. Like, I'll bring you on. We'll do a case study, man. Let's do it. He's doing a deal with me on the residential side right now. He's helping me out on that. So awesome. And that's it too, man. So you start seeing, you start moving, you start getting some stuff under your belt, and like it starts just attracting. And that's the thing, is it's a lot of, you mentioned it, man, fall forward. Like the worst case scenario, a lot of times we can measure what we can lose, but like you can't even envision what you start gaining and the momentum you start rolling. So
I'm actually buying a property from him too. Actually, now that I thought about it, I'm buying a property that's rented, that wholesale deal he got, him and Adam.
There you go. Awesome, man. Yeah. So Will, you're already doing stuff, man. Reach out, like hit me up through Facebook. Let's talk. So, so we've got that. You're interested in the rental. Air BNBs for me is a whole different animal than regular rentals as well. Like I've managed some, I've ran property management for a year. Like the Airbnbs to me, like, have you started, I know you've got one, have you started renting it out, or like what level of the progress in that project are you in, and what's it look like?
That one we've had for, I want to say a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Okay.
At least a year and a half. I actually bought that before I bought my first investment property. I had a on it. So we did that. We bought it. It's pretty much a hands-free off investment. We had a management company that did everything. We helped place the furniture. We picked it up. That was like a cool experience. I helped them furnish it. And then actually when COVID hit, there's actually, I think, a traveling nurse in there right now, long term. Like really, to be honest, yeah, it's pretty hands off for me. I don't see much. So there's a long term tenant in there currently, but we just did that because we didn't know how COVID was going to react. We didn't know what was going to happen in the market, and we had the opportunity to place, a short term or tenant in there at a pretty attractive number and still cash flow. So that was something that we did. We're actually leasing that on a master lease. So we have it for 3 years, a 3-year lease we signed on it. And then we have a tenant in there that we're actually, cash flowing off of, believe it or not.
Okay. So what I just heard is a very creative way that you took control of this property. Not necessarily bought it, but you have control of the property under a lease and are subleasing it as an Airbnb. Is that what I heard correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. So for those of you that are new, for those of you that are like wholesaling, for those of you, and I feel like my computer's running a little slow. My stuff is choppy. Hopefully my sound comes through, but I'm going to ask Connor how to navigate this, because I've done it. I know how to do it, but it is hearing it from another avenue and having somebody teach it that's done it is always eye-opening. Always be willing to be the student. So if you would, because this is a very creative financing, creative deal structuring, like that's very, and especially if you're wholesaling, from my experience, like wholesaling with no money is one of the greatest things you can do to learn how to creatively structure deals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced that, but like it makes your mind work differently, which is why I always recommend wholesaling for, at least a year. When I was first introduced, I was like, man, I don't want to do this. I want to run rentals. I want to run projects. If I didn't have those 2.5 years of wholesaling, and I'm still going to wholesale obviously, but the mental game of getting stuff converting to the closing table is huge. So can you lay out like how that went start to finish, like when you decided or how you guys decided like, hey, we need to structure this. There's an opportunity here, but it's not traditional. And then break down how you like structured everything and went through that process.
Yeah. So believe it or not, actually someone brought it to us. So it was 3 of us on it. Now there's only 2 of us on it.
Okay.
Opportunity that we like, hey, look, you buy the assignment for this price.
Gotcha.
You're able to sublease it, and then we had to furnish it. So someone brought it to us. There's 3 of us that went in 3 ways on it, and then now it's actually 2 of us.
Okay.
So we leased it out. We're down in the Shaw neighborhood. I want to say our lease is like $1,200 or $1,300 a month. To be honest, I have no idea.
Okay.
It's probably really bad.
But I was going to say, it depends on when you actually signed up for it. Now it's probably pretty good.
Yeah. So we have that. And then the whole like, obviously the plan was to Airbnb it, was to cash flow. And we had some really good months cash flowing, and we had some months that were really bad and that were painful that we had to come out of pocket for to cover rent because expenses were higher. Yeah. So that was a huge learning lesson. I think that I learned how to be in a deal creatively, and B, you learn how to work with partners and not work with partners. So that was a huge lesson for us, being able to say, hey, look, the barrier to entry, you don't have to own a property, to make money in real estate. Like right now I'm doing my first owner finance deal, and it was pretty cool to be able to bring that to fruition and being able to see the different options, because I think that's the biggest thing people they always freak out about. Like, there's not one exit on a deal. Like, you should have multiple exits in a deal and multiple options present a seller. Like, you are really whenever you go to a property, you are you're there to help them solve a problem. And your goal, I think, is to help them figure out what that problem is.
Yeah. No, that you hit it right on the head. And the more creative, not even creative, but the more ways that I think my video is completely stuck. So give me a second.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm going to kill my, maybe not. Yeah, here we go. All right. So the more ways, and you hit it on the head, the more ways you can solve someone's problem or give them ways to solve their problem, the more they know that you understand their situation and you're not really forcing them into taking help, right?
Right.
It's more of a partnership at that point, which gets like Chris Voss in Never Split the Difference, they talk about you create partnership as opposed to getting false yeses, which is what happens a lot. And then like people will ghost you and you don't know why. Well, it's because we weren't providing value. We weren't building that relationship. Instead, we were just kind of like, hey, this is what I can do. Take it or leave it. You know? So, and I know, how Adam operates in that brokerage. It's all about building relationships and building like the network that way. So I can imagine you're spot on with doing that, right?
Yeah, 100%. I really think that like whenever you go to a property, even when you're meeting with someone, it's really, you want to get to know them first and get to know like what's going on and how you can be an option for them. And even if you're not an option, I think providing value and providing resources to them is huge. I've been on a lot of appointments where I haven't got the deal, but I've helped the seller figure out a title issue, or if it helped them figure out a problem, or connected them with, a plumber or carpenter or someone they needed. So I think the biggest thing is providing value, and it comes back tenfold in the end.
Oh yeah. I'm going to write a quick message here and post it up. Provide value and it comes back tenfold.
Like people always think it's about the check and the money, and yeah, the money's really, really nice, and it makes life a little easier. But when you shift your mindset, like what you said, to like the process and the game, like that's what I love. It's like it's a game, and it's like just going out and hustling and working hard and pushing through. Like the money comes.
Yeah, and that's it. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he calls it the backwards principle of like, when you make it all about the money, you're basically telling like the universe and the people that you're dealing with that, hey, like I'm not okay unless I have this, so I'm going to chase it, right?
Yeah.
And just like with anything in life, if you start chasing it, what does it do? It runs away from you. whether it's, a girlfriend or a deal, or it gives that vibe of almost desperation, right?
Yeah, and people, I'm a huge fan of like imperfect action is better than no action. Like you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to know the system. Just go out there and do it. Like take action is the biggest thing that I tell people. Like whenever they ask me, like, what should I do? I'm like, just do it. Even if you fail, do it. Like,
right. And that's it. Yeah. And if you're not doing it, for me, there's always a resistance of some, like, what is the reason why you're not doing it? Let's get that addressed so you can move forward. I don't care. Like it's normally a feeling of I'm either not good enough to execute it, which great. The only way you're going to get better is by doing it. Or I'm afraid of what's on the other side. Okay, well, great. Well, we don't even know really what's on the other side until we take action. So what do we need to do to move forward, right? So one of the things you had mentioned is working with partners. Like you said, you learned what works with partners and what doesn't. Can you elaborate and go into that a little bit more? Like I got the feeling it was from, you said you had 3 partners on the lease and now, or the Air BNB, now you've got 2, like without going into really any specifics of how that went down. Like what's the lessons that you learned from
Yeah, I think that whenever like a partnership is like a marriage. I've never been married, so I shouldn't say that or make that analogy, but you should proceed with caution. I think you should really get to know someone before you join up and do something. Saying that, I feel like I JV a lot of, like, even to this day, I'll JV a lot of deals. Like if someone has a buyer, if I have a dealer, or vice versa, I think those are like are very beneficial, especially in the beginning. You can really learn a lot. But inking it up with a partnership is something that I always recommend that you take time and you move very, very slow with. Don't like jump in and proceed and do it, because that name and that name's on everything. So if a deal goes bad, or if they don't do something right morally or ethically, that comes back on you.
Yeah.
So that is my biggest thing on partners. I've had some great partners, and I've had some bad partners on stuff. So that's been huge.
Yeah, man, definitely. So Spencer Wayne, I'm not going to even attempt to butcher that last name.
Pretzel like the pretzel. That's actually my partner on the Air BNB.
There you go. So Spencer, what did you say his last name was?
Schwetzel like the pretzel.
Schwetzel?
And I'm probably butchering it.
Yeah, it sounded like there was a W in there that's not there, but it's all good, man. So Spencer, thank you for the comment. Thanks for giving Connor some love. Yeah, man. And you hit it on the head, and a lot of times I mean, we could go into marriage. Like I'm almost.
I don't want to. I'm good with
No,
that.
no, not at all. But like you're right. It's not just a matter of like who they are, but it's a matter of how do we operate in that relationship as well, and finding out stuff about ourselves allow us to go into it better. And yeah, it is definitely a marriage. Like you've got to have what ultimately, and it's just like with hiring people, it's just like scaling your business, any type of relationship that's going to be longer than just transactional, it has to be a great fit, and it has to be something that works and knows. Like the phrase that came up with a client last week was like, we weren't intentional with it, so we just basically got somebody that fogged up a mirror. Well, yeah, at that point, you're 6 months down the line in your Airbnb and realize, oh, this was a horrible idea, right?
Yeah, and it was actually it was like you learn. It's like everything I've done is lessons learned. Like I'm in the process of hiring like an admin right now, an assistant for like the office, and I had one before, and she was like a rock star. She was good, but like I wasn't ready for it personally. Like
right.
I didn't take the time to sit down and train. I just like said, here you go, like do it. And that was like you learn it as a leader, and like as a supervisor and a boss. Like, hey, you get to have that time, that intentions, in order to grow that plant, like grow that tree, and make it like flourish, like make it grow. So
yeah, because it's as like you just hit on it, as a leader and as a possible partner, it's an extension of yourself. Like growing yourself, you have to be able to facilitate that, man. So that's awesome. That's awesome awareness and insight, man. You've got a lot of stuff. So we're about at the half an hour mark. So I normally at this point we've got kind of the past laid out, your journey. You cool if I just pepper some questions at you?
Yeah.
All right. I love the enthusiasm. So first question I normally always ask if we don't get it covered. Let's see. So what are some things? I normally narrow this down to three things. What are three things? And you got kind of a shortened time frame of a couple years. What are three things that you thought in this process were easier than you expected, and then three things that were a surprise that they were actually more difficult?
It's so hard. So I thought running a business was easy, and I quickly realized that is one of the hardest things in the world to do.
Okay, for sure.
I thought finding buyers would be hard, and I found that finding buyers is pretty easy.
Yep.
So those are the one, and then I think the biggest thing is that I think people always freak out about is the money, like finding the money to rehab a house or do it. But I've learned that the money is there. Like if you have a deal, the money comes, and that's been the biggest like eye-opening experience and transformation that I've had in the short time that I've been in the game, like realizing how to use someone else's money. So I would say that like running a business is like I thought would be the easiest thing, and it's the hardest.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So I want to hear your thought process and kind of how you break down. And the one that would probably help a lot of people is finding the money for the deals.
Yeah.
What you envisioned it to begin with versus where you're at now, and what that really looked like for you learning like, oh, hey, this isn't actually how it is, and this is why. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So I thought like there'd be a lot of red tape and a lot of hoops you had to jump through, and there definitely is if you go the traditional bank route.
Yep.
But I've used private money and business credit since I've started. Like business credit is actually like kind of what has started and funded my business, and something I still use today. And something I'm very passionate about, using like credit. And I know it's scary for a lot of people, but I think it takes a lot of discipline to do that, because it's very easy to sell a house and not pay off that line of credit or that credit card that you have that's a business card. So I think that's the biggest obstacle that I thought would be hard, or even getting hard money. Like I thought that was going to be a challenge, and really like it's pretty easy. Well,
hard money is in the name. Why isn't it hard? Or why, I always love that. Yeah, man. So I've done hard money lending with, the people I've worked with and stuff, but yeah, it's interesting. And for somebody like of your caliber that's done 13 deals, like you start building a track record too.
Yeah.
And like it's a lot of people attach it to like, oh, hard money, it's going to be difficult. And it's going to, well, no, it's just like their criteria is not like a 3% APR for 30 years. It's like, oh, it just costs more. But if you build it into the business, if you buy right, if you have things set up, like it's not hard. It's shift for me was it shifted from hard money to private money. Like once it was private money, it was like, oh yeah, that makes so much more sense.
People always freak out. They're like, you're paying that much for money? And I'm like, yeah, I love it. It goes like carpet, paint, flooring, interest. Like it's just a line item on the budget. Like I cut a check the other day with like $8,000 on like a smaller deal for interest. I loved it. Like it was cool. Like, I had no problem doing it. People are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I still made a good amount of money. So I have no problem doing that. Like I have no problem. My first deal actually, my first deal I bought was private money. My grandpa, I bought it. I borrowed $12,000 from my grandpa and financed the rest on a business credit card to flip it. So
nice.
That was a cool experience.
Yeah, and that's it. I'm almost like your wealth of knowledge in the short amount of time that you got it is, I can tell just strictly from like, screw it. Let's see what happens, right? And that's fantastic. Like that approach, like you can tell just infuses into your business as like, oh, cost of business. Oh, this is like, it's matter of fact, which is amazing, man, to see it at your age and like how you roll through that.
I had someone like, they're like, you're going to like, I always have a deal and it was like a bigger profit. It was like $50,000 profit. And they're like, you're going to pay that much in taxes. And I'm like, dude, I love it. Like you're going to pay 30% of that in taxes to like Uncle Sam. I'm like, dude, you don't even have $1,000. Like who cares? Like who cares if I pay that to like Uncle Sam? That's just part of the business. Like taxes, like I like writing the check for taxes sucks, but it's also like a pretty cool, like, hey, I was profitable. I had a good year. Like,
yep. One of my favorite phrases whenever I think about taxes is like from a very wealthy man said, if you're worried about taxes, you aren't making enough money.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, like you don't have a spending problem, you have an income problem.
Yep. All up here is what it is. So I'm gonna use that fear of paying taxes as a reason to not make more money. Okay, yeah. Whatever mental gymnastics we got to make, work. And like you said, it's like what's in their bank account. So TJ Welch says, I'm assuming that's a goat because it's very small. So the greatest of all time is what that TJ?
Yeah, TJ, he's an agent here at Herman London. He's also an investor. He's got some property. He's killing it out there as well.
Nice. Good work, TJ.
So awesome, TJ actually inspired me to get into real estate, believe it or not. I was watching that. I was like going to high school and I like saw we went to high school together and I'm like, man, TJ's doing it. If he can do it, I can do it. Like
whatever, man. And it's amazing to me, like how these stories like come out of the woodwork of like a lot of people. It's just one of those, oh, hey, that looks cool. Like, let's see if it works. And then other people are like, I fell backwards into this and I'm super successful at it. Well, yeah, man, that's how it works. So, so that was awesome, man. I love that. Let's see. I've got now I know you've only done like 12, 13 deals. Do you have a specific deal that like solidified this for you? Like, hey, this is what I know I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life. Like, this is it. And like everything just kind of flourishes from there. A lot of people have them. Some people don't. Like, what has your experience been so far?
I would actually say that's pretty recent. Like that happened. So I bought a deal from a wholesaler. Okay. He had it for like 20. I gave him a $5,000 assignment fee for it. So I bought it for 25, and it was a fire burn. It was a house that needed a lot of work, and I was doing the numbers on it, and I was like sitting there like looking at the profit, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. It's like this is too good to be true. And we did it, and I flipped it, and I was like, you know how like you're in the middle of rehab, you're like something's gonna go wrong, something's gonna go wrong.
The other shoe to drop.
Yeah, you're like freaking out.
Yeah.
And I was fixing it up, and I was like, I learned that if I sold property turnkey, I could sell it for a little bit more money than I could vacant because it was an asset. It was actually worth something more, especially in the areas that I'm in. And I was walking a house for an investor in California, and the tenant was having to move because the owner was selling the property. And she's like, hey, look, I have a Section 8 voucher for a 5-bedroom house. Do you know of anything coming up? And I was like, yo, I'm in the middle of rehabbing a house right now. That's a 5-bedroom Section 8. Like, I'll take Section 8 voucher or a Section 8 voucher for it. She's like, where's it at? And I told her, and she's like, I want it. So I actually had the property leased out before we even finished the rehab. And then 2 weeks later, I had it sold. before the rehab was even finished. And that's been the biggest one that we've had the biggest profit on. And I found that deal from a wholesaler, financed it using hard money. And then because of that deal, I bought the house next door, and I'm owner financing the house next door.
Dude, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So that little street has been very profitable for me. So
I was going to say, you said that street has been profitable for you?
I'll be honest, like the city of Ferguson has been very profitable for me.
Yeah, I was going to ask, knowing your numbers, I'm like, I know the areas, and I've talked to a couple of your partners, and like we run in the same circles, so like I know the areas you buy in, and we had that conversation too, and so and that's just it. Like you are hitting right on it, of like the niche, and like knowing what you like, knowing what makes you money, knowing how you need to operate in that niche. Like the more you know yourself, and then like where you can expand, and like you're going to bring an admin on, but like knowing you made it that street down to the street.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome. And some people are like, no, I won't go near those places. I dealt with, one client that's like, if I can't get out of my car and walk around it 3 times at night and feel safe, I'm not going to invest there. And it's like, okay, cool. And you're a prime example of like, hey, doesn't mean you can't make a buttload of money there.
Yeah, like there's 2 streets where I've been very successful with. Like I have it down to science. Like you have a pretty good relationship with inspectors now, so you know what they look for.
Oh yeah.
Like our last 3, knock on wood, like it continues. We passed first try on inspection. That's awesome. So it's been awesome, like being able to do that, because you know what they're looking for. They know the quality of work that we're doing. So it's been an awesome area, and I love it. I love doing good for the community, because we're taking houses that have been dilapidated, run down, abandoned for years, and rehabbing them back to years. I always say that we provide quality, affordable housing. That is our mission. We provide quality, affordable housing. Yeah,
and I saw that post. The 5-bedroom one that you're talking about, is that the one where they went through the government program and it was the split level?
No, that's actually the one next door. That's actually the one next door that I'm owner financing. I'm working with a individual to purchase it through through NACA.
Dude, that's so awesome. And that's it too, like providing that solution. Hey, like you're a buyer, like this is an opportunity that I can get you into our house by going this route. It's going to take you some elbow grease, but
we just are on the rehab on that one, and I'm like 90% sure we have it sold before it's even done. And it's cool because like in those situations, I'm like, hey, if you catch me in the beginning of the process, like I'll let you pick out the paint color. I'll let you pick out the color of cabinets. I don't give them like the whole Sherwin-Williams line. I'm like, say, yeah, you have 2 options: white cabinet or gray cabinet.
Yeah.
Like beige paint or gray paint.
Yeah. And you hit on it. And like, I love it. I love talking with like people that get that mindset of like, hey, I'll create a win for you, but it also needs to be a win for me. I'm not going to give you the full like options, because if something happens, I still have to protect myself. I still have to like primary. And I get the energy from you is primary for me is going to be a win. Yeah. And then also it needs to be a win for you, because otherwise business just doesn't work, creates resentment, bad partnerships. Like you said, so I can definitely feel that from you, man, it makes complete sense why like this is how it works for you. And this is how like life, people attribute it to a luck a lot of times with people that are having momentum and actually accomplishing things. And no, it's just what you're say that again.
I say it's just hard work and hustle. Like,
yeah. And that's a component. It's also the mindset. It's also like, what are you willing to tolerate in your viewpoint of life? Like, I get that you're like, no, man, it's going to be a win. It's going to be a win here as well. Let's make it work together. If it doesn't, like, I'm still going to make it a win. Like, whoever matches up with me is who's going to get the other side of that win. That's all that matters.
And I think too, like you learn, like especially like being younger. And I always hate saying like your age and like using that, but like taking things personal in your business. Like you gotta realize, hey, look, this is a business decision. This is not an emotional decision that we're making. Yeah, I think that was and it still is to this day. Like it's a huge like mindset shift is doing that. Like I'm saying, hey, look, this isn't gonna work for everybody, and it's not gonna be a win for everybody. But this is how like we run our business, and it is what it is.
It's that tough conversation that a lot of people, it's learned. Like you have to be able, as you grow up, to learn how to have those tough conversations where like you put that boundary in place of, like, especially as like an executive or an entrepreneur type personality of like, look, like we're running a business. I'm going to provide value. I'm going to do all this. Like, I know I'm going to, so we have to have people that are going to receive it the right way as well.
100%.
Yeah. So that's awesome, man. I love everything that you're about, man. Just FYI. So
thanks so much.
Yeah. And so last question, because we're right up against it. So last question I have. One piece of advice that you would give anybody starting out that, you know, you wish you had heard. I mean, you're relatively fresh into it too.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, man, like one piece from your journey so far. What is that you would relay to people?
Take action. Like, surround yourself with people who are a lot smarter than you, and take action. Like, provide value and take action is like the biggest thing. And even in the beginning, there's ways that you can provide value to people and be a huge success. Like, I was on a real estate team with people who are a lot smarter than me, and I learned a ton. And I had to give up a lot, but in return, like, I shouldn't say that. I say that in the wrong way. Like, I gave up a lot monetary, like money wise, but like what I got back in return was like huge.
Yeah.
Like, would I go back and do it again? 100%. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. They're always scared to give stuff up, but it's amazing what you can get back by just providing value and taking action. Like, being the right people. Yeah,
man. It's you know, money is a part of the value system. You can give value in a number of different ways, and that's, you know, a lot of people limit themselves going into starting like, well, I don't have any money, I don't have anything to provide. Everybody's got some. Yeah, everybody's got something to provide, even if it's just time. Like you said, like, I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to put the time in. I'm willing to be a grunt just to learn. Like, what do I need to do?
There's so much. Even in the beginning, I would like run signs to people's, like, I would run signs to like new listings. I would like deliver packets. I was doing stuff that like sucked. Like, I hate doing to this day. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was like doing open houses, which like I absolutely hate open houses with a passion, but like they're a great lead gen source. So it's like, it's
all a matter of what you prioritize your value as, and you know, it shifts over time.
And the biggest thing I think that like is be honest and like have integrity. Like, don't be like shady. Like, don't do like have some kind of like backbone and like some kind of like moral and ethical compass. Yeah.
You don't need to lie to get deals.
No, it's like there's been straight out there. There many times where like I've been honest with people. Like, I think the honesty goes a long way. Like,
it's authenticity. It's real. It's integrity. And that's where you build from. Like, if you're not honest with your words from yourself, you're not going to be honest with other people. And eventually people see through that.
Like, you can have a little success doing that, but like long term, like, I'm here for like the long term. I'm not here for a good time and be done. Like, I'm here for the long term. Like, this is where I see my future.
Yeah.
This is what I plan on raising my family with and like having a family with.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here for a good time. I'm here for a long time. Like, that's not my thing. Like,
he's he's fresh into it a couple years. He's not going anywhere, obviously. And that's a great, like, that's a great point and a great thing to like leave on, I think, is like you're talking about it. Integrity. It's who you are. And it's how to present yourself in a way where, like, and it goes back to that win-win. Like, I'm honest, I'm here. I know we may not connect, and that's okay.
100%. And I think the biggest thing is just like shut up and listen. Like, be a sponge. Like, be in a room and just absorb it, because you can learn so much just by like watching other people and surrounding yourself with people who are like killing it, like doing like great things like you. Like, that's my biggest thing, and like just being around people. And even if you have to like sometimes pay to get that, like I will tell you, it comes back. And it's
investment in yourself. Growth in yourself, for sure, man.
It's been the best investment I've ever made.
Yep. Your return on investment may not be able to be quantified immediately, but you will see it eventually, without a doubt. So, man, I think at that point, I think this is a good spot to kind of close it out with. And is there anything that you want to give any of our listeners or viewers, and any other pieces of wisdom, or should we just call it?
If you have any deals, we're looking to buy in North County. If you're looking to buy turnkey, we're selling turnkey. So we have the deals, and we're looking to buy more.
There you go, man. So I actually have Connor's buying criteria. If you would like to do that, message me directly. You can message him. He's on Facebook. Yeah, he's looking to buy and looking for buyers. So
follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to get bigger on that. I've kind of made a big push on Instagram.
There you go.
Away from Facebook, but
yeah. So he will be expanding his social media influence as well here in the near future. So
hopefully, or if you're an admin looking for an admin position, let me know.
Okay.
Hired.
Yeah. Dude. So on that, let's if anybody is interested, I will Connor, you can send me your criteria for the admin position, kind of what you're looking for as well, because we run in different circles and the same circles, and so I'm always on the lookout to connect other people. So let me know.
I'll send you a link. Post it on Indeed. I'm using a Wise Hire to do all that.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I can include it on here in our link as well. So we've got viewers, people keep watching. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. You've been nothing but awesome, Connor. It was great to get to know you more. And yeah, I look forward to doing some deals with you. So awesome. The new year is going to be amazing. So
it's gonna be a big year, man.
Yeah. So let's connect and talk. If anybody has any questions, again, Connor, he's been amazing. Dude is brand new, like 2 years in. I consider it brand new.
Man, yeah, I'm green. I'll be the first one to admit it.
Right. Yeah. So, but again, man, learn from everybody. I've just learned from listening to Connor. The work ethic and the approach and just the energy is phenomenal. So, any questions, comments, we've got some likes, we've got some comments. So I appreciate it, Connor. Thank you very much for coming on. And I'll post when this is on the Anchor FM. And
all right,
yeah, you can use this however you would like as well. I give everybody free promo from it. So I appreciate it, man.
We'll get you a little royalty on it.
Hey, provide value. It'll come back tenfold, right?
Right. Appreciate it, Josh.
There you go. Have a good one, man. I'll talk to you soon.